Hello and welcome to another busy crochet tutorial. Today we are going to be learning a stitch called the Interlocked Diamond stitch. This is what it looks like when it's completed. Today we are going to be using a worsted weight cotton. I love this cotton, and you need two different colors. Regardless of what weight you use, today we're going to be making a washcloth, so this is why I recommend using worsted weight in a cotton. I'm also going to be using a number 7 4.5 millimeter hook. You will also need scissors for clipping your ends. You will need a large eye needle for cleaning up your ends, and you're going to need a small handful of stitch markers because we will be using them throughout. I don't know that you need 6 or 7 of them, but I just like to keep a bunch of them on hand for when I want them. All right, so we are going to choose which color we're going to make kind of our main color today. So this pink color is going to be what we call our main color. The white is going to be our accent color. I want this blue to be on top of this lighter tone, which is going to be on the bottom. So whichever one you choose to be your bottom color here, you are going to start with that color first. And we are going to start with 35 chains. Now this pattern is a multiple of 10 plus 5. It literally does not matter what multiple of 10 you start with. Add 5, the pattern will remain the same regardless of what you make. Give me just a second. I'm going to chain my 35 and I'll be right back. All right, I've chained my 35. So we're going to actually start with our stitch markers right away. The first thing that we're going to do is count back 4 from where our hook would be in. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to put my first stitch marker in there. Now, this is not something that the original pattern of Interlocked Diamonds calls for. I did take this book from Melissa Leapman's Indispensable Stitch Collection for Crocheters. I had to look at that title. And then we're also going to count another 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So this would be the 8th stitch from the hook. This one is actually one that is recommended in the original. The reason why I marked this one is because over time and after having made so many of these, this is a nice stitch to just kind of know where it is when we need it later. All right, so go ahead and insert your hook back into the loop, and what we're going to do is, now that we have these 2 marked, we're going to use them later. So now we know this is the 8th one, so we're just going to skip over 2 more to the 10th chain from the hook, and we're going to put a double crochet into that chain. And now I want you to put a double crochet into the next chain from the hook. At this point, we are going to start creating a kind of an open space. So we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, a grid. I guess that's the word I was looking for. We're going to skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to double crochet into the next 2 chain spaces. And then we're going to do that again. Chain 3, skip 3, and double into the next 2. We're going to do this all the way across. Chain 3, skip 3, chain 3, skip 3. All right, this is the last full one like this. When we get up to the last 4 chains left on our original chain, we're going to chain 3 one more time. We're going to skip 3, and we're going to put a single double crochet into that last chain. I like to chain 1 just so that it kind of makes it a little bit more secure. It's just a habit. And then we're going to take one of our stitch markers and we're going to secure that loop so that it doesn't go anywhere. Some people like to just pull the loop long. I like to put a stitch marker in there. That way, in case I have to get up and walk away from this thing, nothing pulls out and nothing gets lost. So this is what your start should look like. It's a little wonky right now, but that's okay. None of it's going to matter in a few minutes. All right, so now we are going to attach our second color. We're not going to cut this one off. We're going to leave it completely attached. We are going to be working with both of these colors at the same time. Well, not exactly at the same time, but every other row. So I just kind of leave a long tail. And then we're going to go into not this first one that we put in, but the one that was closest to where we started, the 8th chain from the hook. And we're going to put our hook in there and pull up a loop with our second color. At this point, just go ahead and chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, we need to look at this as front and back. We're going to be working back and forth on this original chain. So this is our front, this is our back. We need to go over the top of the chain that we have here, and we are going to double crochet into the same loop that we just started our chain 6 and put a double crochet in there. So that is how that little section is going to look. Like I said, this all looks very wonky in the beginning. It's okay if it doesn't look absolutely perfect. This will all straighten out as we get more rows on here. The start is always the funkiest part of any pattern. All right, so we're going to continue to work behind this chain here. And we're going to go to this middle section here of the chain 3 that's from our original chain. We're going to put a double crochet into that middle chain from our original foundation chain and chain 3. So double crochet in that middle chain and then chain 3. And we're going to bring our work back to the front, and we're going to double crochet into that same middle chain. So at this point, you should have 2 columns that are in the front, and you should have this kind of crisscrossy look in the back. All right, now we're going to keep working in our front because the crisscrossy look that we created in the back, we now want to create that in the front. So stay in front of this and work into the middle chain of the open chain 3. And chain 3 again, because that helps us hop back and forth. So now we're going to take it to the back, and we're going to double crochet into that same chain space. See how we created that same crisscrossy look in the front? We're going to do that again. So think of it like this. We're going to start in the front, and then we're going to bounce to the back. And while we're back there, we're going to throw another stitch in there so that we can get that area covered. And then we're going to bounce to the front, and we're going to put our stitch there. And while we're there, we're going to go over one more. So if you think of it as, while I'm in the back, I need to go one more over. You don't chain 3 between these. The only time you're going to chain 3 is when you're bouncing from the front to the back or the back to the front. If you're staying on one side or the other, you do not chain that 3. So now we're going to bounce to the front again. And that means a chain 3 and then a double crochet into the same chain space on the front side of the work. All right, see how that's starting to crisscross back and forth? And since we're in the front, we're going to bounce over here and we're going to put a stitch in the center. And then we've already done that, so that means that we need to go behind and chain 3 and put our double crochet into that same space again. Just going to lay that down. And then we're going to, once again, go over in the behind area. We're going to stay behind and go into that middle open chain, and then we're going to chain 3. And we're going to bounce back to the front. And that's where we want to be when we end our side. And once again, you're going to put a stitch marker into that open loop. All right, so you should always, regardless of how many chains you started with, no matter what, you are always going to end with your bounce to the front and finishing off putting a double crochet into that center chain from the row below. Always. So if you get to the end of your whatever chain you started with and you are not ending up in the front, then you've missed something along the way. You should always have the same crisscross action happening from the back to the front. And you should always have some columns open in the front and some columns open in the back. All right. It's easy to get confused when you're going along and you're figuring this out for yourself to skip over sections. All right, now what we're going to do is I'm going to rearrange my yarn just because this is a preference thing again. I have found that if I have this color always to the right of me, my yarns do not get tangled ever. I never have to untangle my yarn. All right, so we are now going to put our color 1 back on to our hook. And I already started with a chain 1, so we're going to chain 5 more so that we have 6. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now I'm going to show you how to turn this. That has saved a million headaches for me. If you do not make sure that this particular section is to the back side of your work when you turn, it's going to be a nightmare for you. Alrighty, so make sure that this little section right here is pushed to the back, like so. Kind of dangle it down. I usually push it completely out of the way so that I can see these stitches here, because we are going to be working on these stitches here. I'm going to just zoom out a little bit. These 2 stitches here are where we want to start immediately after we chain our 6. So you want to make sure that this is completely out of your way. And why is the reason that we do that? I will show you as soon as we start working on that color. All right, so go ahead and put a double crochet into each of these double crochets. And now we're going to do that bouncing back and forth between the front and the back again. So chain 3, 1, 2, 3, only it's far less complicated now that we have it established. So we're going to bounce back to what we're calling the front of our work and putting 2 double crochets into the open double crochets. Chain 3, and then go to the back of the work and double crochet into those 2 double crochets. So it gets so much easier once you get that foundation established. It's just not that hard. It's such a simple pattern. We're just bouncing back and forth from the front to the back, making sure that we're not skipping any of the stitches that we have established. All right, now here is where our little extra stitch marker is going to come in handy. So when you are here, you're going to, I should have removed this one, sorry. We don't need that anymore. All right, so when you are putting your double crochet into this end to finish the side, you want to put it in what we would have considered the double crochet portion of the chain when we turned. So this, we know that we have a chain on each side of these chains that we worked into. We're going to treat that the same here. So chain, chain. And the only reason I'm showing this is so that if you forget to put this extra one in here, you know how you're counting. So this would be the extra chain on the opposite side of this worked stitch. Then you're going to want to count up 3. 1, 2, 3. That's going to be what is considered the double crochet portion of that chain. And you're going to want to put a double crochet into that chain. All right, and we're going to put that right back on. So don't throw these away. Keep them close by. We're going to put that right back on there. Okay. Now, why did I have you shove this to the front side of the work? That is because, according to our instructions, we are starting in the front of the work and we're going to be working to the back of our work. We want to crisscross over this. If you start out with this yarn and this behind here, you're going to have to pull it through here and work the yarn through that hole continuously. It just gets very tangled up and very messy. How do I know that? Because that's the way I screwed up the first time I made this. All right, so take that off briefly and get your hook back on there. And we're going to, like I said, I've got one on here, so we're going to go 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now we are going to turn our work. We want to then start working. We're going to be working around these chain 3 loops. We're not going to be working into the double crochets that we created, because what it does is it then creates that crisscross look. See, this is where I worked into the chain 3, and then we're going to be putting all of these double crochets around the chain 3s. That creates that kind of gridlock, latticey kind of feel. So go ahead and working from the front to the back, you're going to go around the chain 3. And it's okay that this is all loopy. We don't care about that right now. We're working only this dark blue color. All right, and so because we're behind, we need to stay behind and go around the next chain 3, like so. And then we need to bounce to the front. So 1, 2, 3. And we're going to go around that exact same chain 3 that we just put the one from behind. And now that we're in the front, we need to stay in the front so that we can jump over to the next chain 3 and double crochet around that. Now we have to bounce to the back. So 1, 2, 3, and we're staying in that same chain 3, working from the back. And then we need to stay in the back. So we're going to go over to this other chain 3 and put our double crochet, and then bounce to the front, working around that same chain 3, stay in the front, go to the next chain 3, put your double crochet, now bounce to the back, that means chain 3, and work around. Now stay in the back and go to the next chain. And it feels kind of funky and messy here. But we have to still finish. Remember, we always finish to the front of our work when we're at the end of this row. So now this is where it gets a little bit different. We're going to push this like so, and we're going to pull this chain up through that hole. Now this is the beginning chain that we started with when we did our very first chain 6 with this. So once again, we're going to be looking for that double crochet chain. So that's going to be the first 3 of the 6 that you started with. So starting from the very bottom, this is where we're connected. This is our first chain. This is our second. This is our third. We're going to go into the third chain, and we're going to double crochet into that same space. And you see how in that move, we once again crisscrossed over into that interlocked look. And we're going to go ahead and put a stitch marker. So after working both of those colors, this is what we now have. we now have that look that goes back and forth and creates that lattice. So we started with these guys, and now we have these guys. So we've got these 3 here, and now we have 2 here. This is actually the wrong side of our work. This is the front side of our work. All right, so as you can see, when you start on the bottom, using the 35 chains, we have 2 here and then 1, 2, 3. So it's just going to go back and forth like that. We have 2 here and we have 1, 2, 3 here. All right, let's keep going. Okay, here we go again. We have to make sure, and this is why I keep this always to the right of me, the whatever this color is, I always keep to the right side, because when I turn my work, then it's always, I can always push it out of the way. And I don't know why it works that way. It just does. You're going to develop your own style and what works the best for you. But this is just what works for me. So remember, this has to be pushed to the back side of your work before you begin. And then when we turn it, it's going to be the front side of our work. But working right now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, when we turn, this has to be on the front side. All right. So make sure it stays there as I make a mess. And once again, we're going to be working into only this color, the double crochets, and we're going to be bouncing back and forth. So that means you're going to chain 3 between each of your 2 double crochet sections. 1, 2, 3, and bounce to the front. And put in your doubles. And we're going to chain 3 and bounce to the back. Put your doubles in your doubles. And chain 3. Bounce to the front. And chain 3 and bounce to the back. And we're going to finish this off with a chain 3. Remember, always finishing to the front. And here's our chain 6 from when we turned our row. We're going to find the double crochet. So the 1, 2, 3rd chain from the bottom is always going to be your double crochet. And you're going to put your double crochet into that. And stitch mark your stitch. Okay, here's what we have on that section. Now we're going to turn our work one more time, always working with our next color. Excuse me. And let's get this back on our hook. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we're going to turn our work. All right, here we go. We're going to be intertangling everybody, interweaving. So we are in the front. We need to go to the back because we don't want to do more front crisscrossing. So working from the front, we are going to the back and going around that chain 3. Moving on to the next chain 3, we're staying in the back. And then we're going to bounce to the front with a chain 3 and working in that same chain 3. And staying in the front, we're going to go around the next chain 3. Bounce to the back. And around that same chain 3. Staying in the back, around the next chain 3. Stay, and now bouncing to the front, around the one we just worked, stay to the front, bounce to the back, stay to the back. And then remember, we are finishing in the front. So this is where we have to push this out of our way and pull this up through that hole. Find our 1, 2, 3rd chain and put a double crochet into it. Alrighty. So literally it is going to be the same movements over and over again as we go up. You can decide how big this is. Like for a dishcloth, you're going to want hand size, obviously. But I'm going to do this section with you one more time for a set of rows, and then I'm going to let you go, and I'll come back when we get to the end of our side so that we can learn how to count up to figure out where do we want to finish off and how do we finish off. All right, so let's do this one more time together. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now we're turning, keeping this section always to the front and doubling into the double crochets, bouncing back and forth with your chain 3s. And chain 3, going behind, chain 3 to the front, and chain 3 to the back. And our last chain 3 to the front. And now we find our double crochet 1, 2, 3. The 3rd chain from the bottom is always our double crochet. And put your stitch marker. There we go. Okay, now finishing up our pass with our second color. Two, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And going to the back. Staying in the back and going to your chain 3. And bouncing to the front with a chain 3, going around that same one that we just worked. And staying to the front, bouncing to the back with a chain 3, working in that same one that we just did. Staying in the back and going into the next chain 3 space. And chain 3, working in that same one, and then staying in the front, working in the next chain 3 space, and around. And now we're going to stay in the back, chain 3 to go to the front, and then pulling our chains up, going into the 3rd chain from the bottom of that original chain 6, and putting a stitch marker on. All right, now, just so that you are aware, the front side of your work is going to be when you have both of your stitch markers on the right-hand side. So if you want to, just to help you, throw a stitch marker around some loops to indicate this is the front side of my work. All right. This is going to help you a little bit later. So I'm going to continue going. I'm going to show you how I count this before I do that so that you're not just going willy-nilly. All right, so when I decide where I want to stop for all of my future pieces that, like, I've got several of these little coasters and they're all exactly the same size. And the way that I make sure that that happens is I start with, because I know which side is the front side of my work, I start with this little section, not the lattice, but the background color. And I count the background color circles or diamonds, however you want to look at this. And so for me, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I always start with this bottom row. It just helps me maintain continuity. So if you decide that you want to start up here and use these to count, that's your preference. I'm just showing you what has made it easy for me, because then I know where to stop at the top as well. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in total. All right. So when I get up to this section here where we're working just the bottom, which would be this section, when it looks like this, and I know that my next section coming through is going to be my 6th. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is my 6th section here, which is this little area here. Then I know that my next pass is going to be the end of it, because that's how I keep everybody the same size. So just for your reference, I'm also going to be counting this one up 6. I may not, yeah, I'll probably stop at 6. So I'm going to count this one up 6 as well. And I'm going to be starting with my background color, the light blue right here. So this is 1 and this is 2. This is the beginning of 3. Actually, not even the beginning of 3, because we haven't, that comes up here. So just remember where you're counting, okay? When you establish, and so you may want to even not put this just random willy-nilly on here. You may want to put your right side stitch marker on the spot you intend to start your counting, all right? So that you don't get confused when you look at it again later. So you're going to be here and you're going to say 1, 2. All right, I've only done this past 2 times. I'm going to do it so that I have a total of 6. All right, I'm going to let you continue on with this. I'm going to come back when I get to this section of the pattern, and then we're going to work on how to finish this up so that you don't end up with huge gaps. Because I'm going to just show you what I did on these. See, I finished these with double crochets, and that's kind of a large gap. I don't care for that so much, so I've changed the pattern up a little bit, and I'm finishing these up with half double crochets. So we'll do that together, and then I'll teach you how to do the border so that you get an even count every single time. All right, so enough chit-chat from me. I will see you in just a few minutes, and we will work this end together. All right, so I've completed the amount of repeats that I wanted to complete, and I wanted to show you that this is what you want it to look like when you are ready to do your very last color row. Now, once again, just reiterating that this is our starting chain down here, and this is where we ended up. This was the very last double crochet that we did on our starting chain. That's the side that needs to be facing you. This is the right side. So even if at the beginning of the work you want to mark that as your right side, you can do that. But anyway, so counting from this bottom diamond, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I should just see the start of row 6. So I want to finish mine at 6. The one thing that you want to do and make at this point is to cut off this interlocking color here. So I just kind of cut it like this, and I use my stitch marker to just pull it through and secure that, because you're not going to go back over this one more time with this secondary color. You're going to finish off with this main color here, the diamond color. So like I said before, you can choose how you finish this off. You can do it either with a half double crochet or a double crochet. The double crochet leaves a larger hole at the top. The half double crochet, much less so. It's just your personal preference how you want to finish it off. I'm going to do this in a half double crochet just because I prefer the smaller hole at the top. The concept stays the same. You still want this to be out of your way. But because I'm going to be finishing off with a half double crochet, I'm not going to be chaining 6. I'm going to chain 5 on this last one because the chain 2 is going to act as our half double crochet. So 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so my chain 2 is my half double crochet. My chain 3 is my chain. All right, so this still has to stay to the front of your work. And now we're going to be putting half double crochets into these double crochets as opposed to doubles. The chain 3 stays the same for the bouncing back and forth, but half double crochets into your doubles instead of doubles into your doubles. Chain 3 and half double. And I'm well aware that this is kind of a small dishcloth. You may want to increase your chain size to begin with if you want to create a larger dishcloth, or you can just keep going. 1, 2, 3, we're on the almost last one. And now do not cut this yarn off when we get to the end of this. 1, 2, 3, and we'll finish up by going into, because we're going to finish up in the 1, 2, 3rd chain on this one because we started with a chain 6 and we don't want it to end up in the wrong spot. Now where the chain 2 over here is going to matter is when we turn this. So we're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn. Now, I just want to talk with you real quick about the edging that we're going to do. It's going to be a straight up single crochet edging. If you are making a square item, the number that you crochet across the top and the sides should be the exact same. The only time that you're going to find that this is off is if you do like a rectangle, because my placemats that I made obviously are not square. My sides are the same and my tops and bottoms are the same. But when you're making a square item, these numbers here and these numbers here are going to be the same if you use the method that I have created to keep everything nice and even. All right, so I chained 1. What we're going to do is we're going to start in this first half double crochet and we're going to single crochet. And now working across the top, we are going to be working into these chain 3 spaces. The bottom's going to be very different because it started off different, but these are going to be open chain 3 spaces. We're only going to be putting 2 single crochets into each of those. So 1, 2, and then we will single into each of the half doubles all the way across. This part is pretty simple. The top and bottom are pretty simple. And once you get used to doing this and remembering how to do the sides, it's all very, very simple. I have literally done these no less than 20 times now, and every single one of them has turned out exactly the same. And so that's why I want to show you how super simple it is, because then you can tackle any project and every single time you do it. And the whole thing is you don't have to leave it a single crochet border. This just gives you a place to start. Okay, so remember we put 2 single crochets into our chain 3 spaces. We are treating this as our chain 3 space, and these 2 chains here are our half double crochet. So we are actually going to go into the second chain from where we started, and we're going to put a single crochet. We're going to chain 2. Now that finishes off our top side. We're going to chain 2. So now we're going to start working on the actual side and into the row ends. But we're going to, as we're turning, put one more single crochet into that half double crochet that we did at the top. Now, with our sides facing us, the way that we're going to set this up is each one of these row ends here is going to receive 2 single crochets. We're not going to touch these bars at all. We are going to start with a single crochet in the chain or the turning corner, and we're going to do the same thing at the end of this. And in between, we're going to put 2, except for the first one and the last one. It's the only time that you're only going to put 1. So put 1 in there and then jump over to the next row end and put 2. Skipping over all of these bars, we're working only into the row ends. All the way down the side. And like I said, you can just use this as a base to put another frilly pretty border on this. You could do fans, anything. You could do the seed stitch. There's all kinds of really fun ways to finish off these dishcloths. Now I have a tendency to catch up this little loop in here, so I'm just gonna do that. So I'm at my second to last row end. Now this is my last row end. I'm going to put 1 because I'm now going to go into what will be the first chain of the next side. I'm going to treat that like a stitch, and I'm going to put a single crochet in it, and I'm going to chain 2. Then I'm going to flip so that I'm working on the bottom edge of my work. So basically my foundation chain. So in that first one, last one from this side, first on this side, we're going to put 1 more single crochet. Now we're treating this bottom edge differently than we did the top because obviously it has a completely different setup. So we are going to be skipping all of these that have the secondary color in it. So going around the chain, we're singling in there, we're skipping this and singling into the next open chain space. And then we're going to go right into the bottom part of the double crochets. And then we're going to go around the chain, skip the one that was worked in and go around the next chain, and then into the double crochets again. Go around the chain, skip the worked in chain and around the next chain and into the double crochets. All right, go around, skip, around, 2 double crochets, around, skip, around, 2 double crochets. All right, so here we are at where we had our original turning chain. I'm going to pull that to the back side. We're still going to skip this one. Now, the chain right next to it is right here, and then one of these chains already got worked in on the opposite side, so there should only be 1, 2, 3 chains here. One of them we're going to crochet around. The next one we're going to crochet into. So go ahead and crochet around and then go into the next chain. I know it's kind of hard to see. This one is open and this one is open, and this is the one we just went around. So we're going to go into what would be this, the middle one of those 3, and put a single crochet, chain 2, and go right back into that same chain and put another single crochet because we're making a corner. All right, once again, we're working the side. So the side only gets 1 single crochet at each end and 2 single crochets into the row ends in between. So 1 single crochet, and then starting in the row ends, putting 2. I know it seems a little bit confusing right now, but once you do this a couple of times, it gets very, very simple to remember. The sides always stay the same. The top and the bottom are the only ones that have any major differences in them. But either way, they're still, I mean, they're both pretty unique, so they're easy to remember. Alrighty, second to last row end. Okay, here we have the last row end. And now we're going to go into the first single crochet space that we shared with the top. We're going to put another single crochet. We're going to chain 2, slip stitch to this first single crochet, and we're done. And now it's just a matter of tucking in your ends. So like I said, I have a pretty small hand, so this is a small wash rag for me. You could definitely start out with 45 and you would end up with a slightly wider square. You could do 55. I mean, no matter where you start, just remember that your weight of your yarn and your hook is going to make a huge difference. This is DK weight cotton and DK weight acrylic together with an F hook. This is worsted weight cotton with a number 7 hook, okay? So it will matter what you use. And along with working with worsted weight yarn, I'm just going to show you a couple of things that I've done with DK weight yarn. I prefer it just because I feel like it makes the pattern just shows up a little bit better for me. I don't mind this. I think it's very pretty. But I think that it, to me, looks a little bit sloppier than a DK weight. And it's just because I can get my stitches tighter. And so I used a DK weight cotton F number 3.75 millimeter hook with this. These are coasters that I can use. And I did them in a couple of different colors. I used everything that I had. This is, I don't even know what this pink is. It's some brand that I happen to have. This is Paint Box. This is Paint Box. And the white acrylic is, I'm not quite sure. But they're all DK weight. I also did Afghan squares that I'm going to put together as an Afghan. And each one of these has a different count on them. I did placemats. I am going to be putting out these patterns very, very soon. But I'm just wanting to encourage you that you can create anything you want with this pattern. It just depends on how many beginning chains you decide on and what kind of yarn you're going to work with. This would be even cute with blanket yarn, but boy, oh boy, is it going to be thick. So just be aware as you're going forward that the thicker your yarn, the thicker this is going to be. It's a very squish pattern. I like it. I love it. I want some more of it. All right, so I will talk with you guys again soon. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. And I hope that it helps open up your mind to all the possibilities that you can do with this particular stitch. All right, be blessed, and I will see you at the next tutorial.